Welcome to Pratidhwani, where we try to humanize science. I'm your host, GV Pawan Kumar. It is my absolute delight, pleasure, honor, and absolute joy to introduce you, my dear friend, fantastic scientist, uh, a great artist, entrepreneur, innovator.
Wonderful, wonderful supporter.
Yeah. So,
Supporter.
yeah. Who is also started new ventures into startup. Professor Ayan Banerjee. Ayan actually is an excellent optical physicist who has contributed deeply and widely to various different topics related to uh, optics down to the atomic scale, so to speak, because he was actually an atomic physicist who also has evolved into very interesting into a researcher who looks into interesting problems in statistical physics, nanophotonics, and even some questions in biophotonics. This kind of facet also is amalgamated with the brilliant, theater personality as Iron is, and he has been contributing a lot in various different areas. Without actually embarrassing him further, I welcome Iron to Pratidwani.
So before we start, Pawan, to put it on record,
uh,
I already wrote this on Facebook, but I really think that what you are doing is unbelievable. I mean, this what you're doing at the moment, you're archiving our present
yeah,
generation in science.
yeah.
That is a service which I do not know how many people are really appreciating now, but I hope posterity will recognize your contribution and the fact that that some of us really existed.
Mm,
That people
yes.
will probably realize. I can tell you. So when
Mm,
demonetization happened, everyone gave opinions, starting from cricketers to film stars to everyone. I do not remember a single scientist being asked what they felt about demonetization. Right?
yes,
So that
yes.
is the status that people in India, at least, give scientists, and the fact that you are doing this, I'm sure, without any, revenue earning
No,
or
no
kind of thing
monetization.
at all, no monetization. You're
Yeah.
spending your time and you're recording this, archiving this. That is something for which you will not be forgotten. At least from the Indian scientific mahal, I think this is a fabulous job. This is
It's
fantastic. Thank you for that.
yeah. It's my honor to
It's
actually
something, but this
hear
is
this.
something which I,
Yeah.
I do not see too much of, this kind of stuff that people do in India, in the sense that people in science, I mean, that is probably all over the world. They tend to
Right.
be too much clustered or sort of concentrating on their own work. And yeah, I rarely see people who go out and, do stuff which is not exactly their own. So that is realizing that this is even bigger,
See, all
actually.
this inspiration I derive from people like you, and I'm telling this without any hesitation, because as we'll actually kind of unveil that Iron has been extremely active in also bringing science to the general public, and doing it through powerful theater. And so being so effective, I have been actually witness to one of the fantastic shows at Ahmedabad. One of the pleasures of actually being in science and knowing Iron, and of course Anindita and others. Um, it was absolute pleasure. So Iron, let's get kind of started with the origins. Tell us about where were you born and what was your upbringing. And there's so many
So
things to actually understand.
that's a Calcutta. So I am a
Yeah.
Calcuttan to the core. I was born in Calcutta, Kolkata, as we
Hmm.
say it. But I prefer I think Bengali and English are two different languages. So whatever. Yeah. So I'm a Calcuttan to the core. Medical College, Calcutta. When I was born, that was a place where, people went for deliveries. Now, of course, you go there. It's a medical, it's a Sarkari hospital, and you know
Yeah.
how Sarkari hospitals have evolved over the last 50 years in this country. So there, and then my schooling. So actually, my from the paternal side, we are based in a place called close to, I think, yeah, we might have heard it, Chandanagar.
Yeah.
It was actually a French colony for a
Mm,
long time,
mm,
and then it came over to India after independence, actually. So we are not really in Chandanagar, there's the town next to it, Bhadreshwar, so Telnipara. So my father's side were, what should I say? I mean, some people are proud of that. I'm not so sure. We were zamindars. And you know why I'm saying that? So, uh, 6 years. The first, my schooling started at this place in Telnipara in Bhadreshwar. Actually, the school was at Chandanagar.
mm,
So I studied there in a co-ed school, which unfortunately it was a convent school again,
mm.
because everybody obviously, you know, that time wanted me to, you know, English was the key to power, as it is still now probably in India. So that was the school was co-ed till class 5. So at class 2, my parents realized that this is, you know, class 6, my admission is not very easy. So I migrated to my maternal uncle's place in Calcutta. That was in South Calcutta. And I went into a pretty sort of a well-known Calcutta school, Don Bosco, and that is where I did my studies till class 12. Then everybody in my family, especially on my father's side, everybody is an engineer. Okay, even
Wow.
my
Wow.
mother, my own uncle, he was an engineer. Father, of course, and it was sort of understood that, you know, the medical thing in our family it was not so much there.
Mm,
So engineering was the obvious thing, and in fact, I remember, you know, even in our school. So you know, we were at a time where if you did not crack JE, in that time JE was very few seats,
yes.
nothing
Yes.
close to what we have now. So the West Bengal joint entrance, from which you went to Jadavpur and Shibpur and all that, that also had some, I think they listed some 1400 names. That is a factor of 20, I think, higher now. Or I mean, I don't know how much, it's like endless probably. IIT gave again some 1200 or 1500 names or something like that. And if you were in that privileged 3000 and reservation to tha shayad, itna tha, yeah, probably it was there. So if you belong to that, so that means 50% gone. So 1500, so when that elite
Mm,
thousand and a half in your country, your life is made. In our school also, you know, the rhetoric was, if you do not get into engineering, if you study physics, and especially physics had used to come because that was thought of as the second step. I
mm.
mean, of course, you succeed if you become an engineer. If you don't succeed so much, there were some people who thought that if you went into physics, your future was selling egg rolls.
Wow.
And that was precisely, I remember a guy saying that, "Oh, general line, what will you do general line? You want me to sell egg rolls?" That was the understanding in those days. If you did not get engineering, economics, etc., were still possible because that is not, that was something which, you know, did give you IIMs and all. So you know that possibility was
Yeah.
there. Physics, matlab maximum तुमको वो professorship होगा, and professors were paid a pittance during our time.
Mm,
So you know that at least that 6 pay commission, that just skyrocketed
okay.
salaries.
Yeah.
That really made this a venture which is financially quite viable now.
Viable.
I think people
Absolutely.
should realize that, right? I mean, I can tell you that I of course, if I jump the gun a bit, I am really, if you think of this make in India, I am an example जिससे better नहीं मिलेगा because
Yeah. Yeah.
I have never left India for anything. So I did my whatever BSc in Calcutta University, in Calcutta, then MSc in Jadavpur, joined IISc, PhD. Then I did not do a postdoc. I went into General Electric,
Electric
Bangalore.
factory. Yes.
From there, I came to IISER, and that's where I have been till now. Never stepped out. Actually, me and my wife, Anindita, both are the same. She has not even stepped out of academia. I did go to industry for 5 years. So that way, you know, I have a bit of a interesting, you know, journey in the sense that I chose to do physics because I would not do engineering. That was clear to me. I would just not do engineering. I had to do something different, and of course, I did. There was a bit of theater actually as well. I mean, in sense of in real life, because there was this mentor I had actually met while I was in class 12. So he used to teach me physics, and he was doing his PhD at Jadavpur University. And he was one of the most, bubbly, enthusiastic sort of guy, one of the most bubbly guys I have ever met, probably. So he was doing his PhD at VCC then, Sci
Mm.
Institute,
Yeah. Yeah.
VCC, Variable Electron. So he was on a CERN ka project. So VCC, Bikash Sinha was the director then, and
Okay.
they had this thing with CERN. So he taught me class 12. And he sort of, it was his energy, that his tremendous passion that he had for physics, along with the thing that this will, whatever it does to you, whatever it, in terms of finances and all that. Of course, if you go abroad, finances will not be a problem. That's what he used to tell me all the time. That do a BSc, you crack GRE, go abroad, and then it's how different are you from, monetarily you'll never be struggling. Most crucially, however, you will be free because academia doesn't have bosses. And number two, you will be creative. Every day will be somewhat new.
Nice.
You will have something happening in a day that will probably be different than the previous day. And that Pawan has been correct.
Correct.
Believe me, that is the journey which I'm sure you and all of us who are into research and who are passionate about research who realize that, of course, monetarily, we are not close to somebody who's whatever doing a in my international bank job or business and all that, entrepreneurship, all that. No, we're nothing close to that. We're quite comfortably off at the moment in India. But most crucially, every day there are things which, in a second year lab, undergrad lab, last this January, one of the students showed me something I'd never done. Life में I had not thought. ये क्या बोल रहा है? कहाँ से आ गया ये? I mean, second year lab, yaar, I was teaching that probably the 15th time, right? Second year undergrad basic optics lab. Usme greeting, I mean, fantastic, right? I mean, you feel so much of joy, so much of happiness. And that, of course, I did not know then that of all this, but I knew, of course, that I would not go into Ghisapita engineering. And this guy told me that you go into physics. But interestingly, I my marks in class 12 were not that great. It's not too bad, but not that great either. And I was in this IISC board, Indian School Certificate, Delhi board, as we used to say, not in Bengal board. And I had, those days, Bahar Jana was not much of an option. I mean, there's all this. In fact, PhD in IISC, I did not even know of.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
heard it after I joined BSc. I
Joint
don't even
PhD.
know of. There was no culture in our college. I was not in presidency, by the way. I was in Maulana Azhar.
Mm.
And people didn't know about it there. No, none of my friends gave that exam. Anyway, so I went into MSc in Jadavpur. But before that even, so BSc and all, even BSc में तो PhD है नहीं, physics पढ़ना था. अभी I applied only 3-4 colleges. And that time, for Delhi board, 50% of the seats were actually more. So Jadavpur had this thing of proportional reservation. So the more number of applicants who came, from HS versus ISC, the ratio of the applicants saved the decided seats. So
Okay.
out of 1,000 applicants, 800 were Bengal board and 200 were Delhi board. The seats would be divided in 80 to 20 ratio.
Mm.
Okay, and in that 20%, you had people who were really good.
Got it.
So obviously, I did not get in Jadavpur for BSc. Presidency, again, there was this thing where they had, I think, 30% of whatever number of seats. There was exam plus this thing, but there was very much more competitive for us than for Calcutta board. I ended up getting into one of the worst colleges that you can think of. Okay, and then that college was, I was in this very, very posh school, and then suddenly, that drop was something which I had not envisaged so much. And then somehow I got into this middle type of college, not in physics, but in economics.
Mm. Wow. Oh, is
And the
it?
deal was that yes, I got in economics,
Mm.
and in presidency, I had also applied in physics and economics. Economics, I was waiting list 3. So typically, that 3 or 4, something like that.
Mm.
Normally it would have got confirmed in the first thing. And if I had got presidency economics, that was one of the best things in the country at that time. Then you and me wouldn't have been talking today, 100%. But that year, waiting list only went down to number 2.
Mm.
And I was in the second waiting list, उसमें हो जाता but तब भी नहीं. And then I was almost set off कि तो हुआ नहीं. Then believe me, one evening, I was taking a bus. I was in a bus stop, and when I went to the bus stop, I saw this teacher of mine, this mentor, standing there, and we hadn't talked for some time. And then he said, "Hey, kya, how are you? What are you doing? Which college did you get into?"
Mm.
And then I said, and the moment I saw him, to mera to laga, "Arey." So I said, yeah, his name was Orun. So I told him that, Orunda, I am actually taking economics in Maulana Azad. He just told me, what? You will not study physics. You will not study physics. And then there was this bus. He jumped up on the bus and went. And that Pawan, that was almost like fate or
Yes.
something telling me this. Because that was really a dramatic scene. We talked for maximum 15 seconds. He asked me, what are you doing? Where? I said, physics? Nahi hai. Economics? Nahi karega. Bus aa gaya, wo chala gaya. And I kept
Wow.
standing there. And then, so that time, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, he was actually Education Department of Bengal.
Mm.
He was one of the founder people. So he was deputy secretary later on. But he knew, and many universities and colleges, he actually had set up. Okay, he had helped in setting up. So he knew almost every college principal, whatever. He was like very, very well connected. Even after that time he was retired a long time back. But he somehow knew the principal of my college. And the principal had great respect for him. So वो उसको कॉल किए और बोले कि आपके यहाँ पे तो मेरा ग्रैंडसन ही डिड नॉट अप्लाई इनटू फिजिक्स बट कैन यू लुक एट हिज मार्क्स एंड सी कि
Mm.
वेटिंग लिस्ट में कैन ही गेट इट कैन ही ट्रांसफर फ्रॉम इकोनॉमिक्स टू फिजिक्स
Mm.
had this connection not existed, again, me and you would not have been talking. Because though
Wow.
I was qualified with marks, I had not applied into physics. Because I thought I would get into Xavier's or presidency and all that. It was a rude awakening for me. So Xavier's was also great. I gave the exam in physics, and what I was told, my name had come out in chemistry.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I did
Okay.
not even go to check it. I was
Mm.
told by one of my class friends, school friends of Don Bosco, that "Hey, I saw your name in chemistry." I said, "Chemistry? I didn't even apply." I went there, they said, "No, it is done." The yoga. Anyway, so then because of this guy said, okay, he talked to the department. The department said, okay, we have had a lot of attrition this time. So maybe, okay, I'm really passionate. The HOD took an interview of mine. And I said that I will leave this college. If I do not get, I'll drop a year. I even said that much. So he said, "ठीक है, okay, कल से आ जाओ." So that was my journey into physics. Had I not met Orunda in that bus stop for those 10 seconds of my life, I don't think I would have had the courage to, because economics was the second thing after engineering. Engineering नहीं होता तो economics presidency वो हो जाता because एक महीने बाद presidency probably would have materialized for me. So then of course then it was standard Jadavpur MSc. I was determined for a PhD. PhD I got offers in PRL, I remember, and IISc. Of course I joined IISc. Then G IISER, and of course that corporate to academia transition. I think
Mm.
Umakant and me are so he joined 3 months after me actually, and that was very interesting. So this you have many journeys from academia to industry. The opposite actually is not very common in
Very
India.
common.
And I can
Absolutely.
tell you, Pawan, had I applied now, I would not have gone in. Neither either me or Wakat. We would not have been selected. Because, of course, G does not allow you to publish. So I
Mm.
had many patents, but publications, though, you are not allowed because corporate publication is ridiculous, right? You are giving away knowledge. So you cannot. So I had, of course, saying there are many, many patents there. Wakant also had several. But the important point was the ISAs were coming up there
Mm.
and they needed people who could build. So my life in my three places I've been, formal career, IISc, uske baad GE, uske baad IISER, I've started with empty rooms. Nothing, nothing. And IISc, though, we broke apart. We destroyed an existing lab and built a new lab. GE, when I first went in, there was a completely empty room. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. IISER, again, nothing. So they wanted desperately people who could set up.
Set it up. Yes.
And
Yes.
that was the reason. that I got selected in spite of not doing a postdoc abroad, in spite of being completely cut off from the academic lobby entirely, which I've suffered, of course, later on because everybody builds connections during their postdoc.
Yeah.
I built nothing, and whatever I had to do, I had to start absolutely afresh. You know that optical tweezers is not something I had ever done before
Yeah.
in IISER Kolkata. I had to learn on the job, and it's because we have such fantastic students here. I've just learned because of them completely because I had no idea about tweezers at all in my life. Of course, in G we tried to give a
Yeah.
proposal, but it was soundly rejected, saying that iska business application kya hai. It never worked. So, but any depth, in fact, the first trapped particle, that also I was, that I'll never forget. So I had these two undergrads, fifth year guys who set up the
Mm,
lab. Three of
mm.
us did it.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
PhD students there. They were the first batch of Pfizer. First batch, 2006 batch, first ever. And I'll tell you, Komal, that was the best batch
Best
I have
batch.
seen in my life in terms of physics. Unbelievable. In terms of teaching, in terms of my career as a student and my career as a teacher, those, I think there were 11 or 13 guys. Can you believe 5 of them won the SP Mukherjee Award in CSIR?
Wow.
Five
Wonderful.
of that IISER Kolkata physics batch were in the top 20. Okay, so उसमें there were two who were setting up my lab. Not okay, CSR में वो एक था. SP को कुछ मिलने वाले. So they were setting up, and there was this microscope that I got from Zeiss, and we had to take off many things from the microscope, all kinds of whatever. There were things because I did not know. So Vasant, my guide, Vasant the Trajan, he had set up tweezers after I left. I mean, I had seen the microscope and I used to help the project. He didn't even have a PhD student. He had a project student. Usko I used to help a bit. Okay. So I had never seen a particle tracked. I just helped the guy to set up lasers and all that. And then I left. And Vasant told me that this is a microscope we should buy. And then I ordered that ditto thing from Zeiss. And there were lots of things which were unnecessary.
Yes.
Completely.
Yeah.
Including 1064 filter. So we were not getting any light into our sample chamber because I didn't know anything, right? And there was like, कुछ नहीं आ रहा है, क्या हो रहा है? We are putting in light at the back port, nothing is coming. Then we saw there was this damn filter, and I mean, then we were like, how the hell do I get it out?
Yeah.
And then I had gone for lunch, and these two, one of those two, they decided that because this microscope, that filter was inside the backboard, okay? There was no
Yes.
way you
Yes.
could take it out unless you took
Yeah.
apart the microscope, which was a big problem, right? It was a new microscope, ekdam pura khol dena without the guys, technical guys from Zeiss around is a risk. So we could not take that. Then I go for lunch, and those guys, of course, had eaten before. I come back, and lo and behold, light is coming. They said, "Arey, kya? What did you do?" Then you know what they did? I mean, that would not have been done if I had been around. One of those guys, Orijit, he actually took the microscope and flipped it and put
Oh
a
my.
vacuum cleaner inside and sucked out the lens. He sucked out the lens. I was so even imagined in my life taking a 30 lakh microscope and turning it. One of them inverted it. When inverted microscope, वो invert कर दिया. और उसके नीचे से घुसा के. So they took off the cover, the cover which holds the microscope to the table. There's this, what are some rubber piece or something.
Yeah.
उसको
Yeah. Yeah.
निकाल दिया. अंदर से वैक्यूम का होस घुसाया and sucked the lens out. I mean, I was like, I would have never allowed that. Okay, but they did it. They were like brilliant, right?
Yeah.
And then one day we had aligned everything, and I told him that okay, some lunch ke baad, we will see trapping. That guy was so impatient, he trapped when I was in lunch. So I came back and I saw a trap particle smiling at me. It was so frustrating, I'll never forgive him again. The first time the trapping happened in my lab, I was not there.
Not
So, like,
wonderful. Wonderful. So I should mention to the viewers and also the listeners, Iron's lab is now one of the outstanding labs which is doing optical tweezers. So this is actually a great lesson and also a great story for everybody who would want to actually start something. It also is a kind of a reflection of the fact that openness is so much, and that's beautifully narrated, Diane. In fact, it's so inspiring to know that actually. Yeah.
see, I have learned several things, because some of my research has only progressed, believe me, only progressed because I was not in tweezers. Because I started from
Yeah.
fresh, clean slate.
Please. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you probably know that one of our main avenues of research is the spin orbit interaction of light, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that whole thing happened that I have now what? 4 PhDs coming out of that. So two
Mm,
are finishing, one, two more, four. No, three actually. Okay, Basudev
mm,
and these two, I think.
yeah.
Three
Yeah.
on this. And many many MS students. One
Scores of
more
them.
student is
Scores of them.
scores of MS on spin orbit, on SY of late, on
Wonderful.
that. Okay.
Wonderful. Mm.
So, no, that happened. Only the reason that this whole avenue of work started in our lab is because I bought a wrong cover slip. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Believe me, because everybody in tweezers, we use this refractive index matched cover slip,
Matched.
which is
Yeah. Yeah.
glass, which is with the oil 1.516, right? So I didn't see. My thing has always been to do and then see what happens. As an experimentalist, you will do it. जो आता है फिर वो देखेंगे वो पहले बैठ के theory पढ़ना कौन करेगा. Okay, I'm out and out an experimentalist, right? And that has helped me
Yes.
also.
Yes. Yeah.
Two
Yeah.
good things. We have discovered it first. वो पहला theory करता तो कभी नहीं आता. We
Mm.
did it first and then we explained with theory. Anyway, so then I was trying to buy stuff like crazy, and then I saw कि Sigma or Rich was selling these cover slips, and I saw there were polymer cover slips, and they were quite, in the sense I thought that okay, polymer मतलब वो तो reuse कर सकेगा because कांच टूट जाते हैं, right? You can
Yeah.
throw it. Polymer, fantastic, right? So it will never break. So ठीक है, I bought 2-3 whole cartloads of that thing because I thought ये तो बहुत अच्छा है, right? Because it's new and transparent है, कुछ भी fine. It's and then we were, in the first wrapping was with that. I did not even buy glass, or probably we got some free cover slips. When Zeiss sold us, they gave us some cover slips. वो
Yeah.
थे, but mostly it was that. And then lo and behold, when we do trapping, again these two and me do together, and I see that I'm not getting particles trapped at the center of my beam. I'm getting a strange mala of particles, a ring of
Mm.
particles. And
Yes.
ये क्या हो रहा है यार, ये कुछ भी समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. What is this happening? कहाँ से आ गया? We searched literature, there was nothing.
Mm.
Every time I get a nice necklace of beads
Yes.
around my focus, and then this is crazy, right? ये क्या हो रहा है? It took us 1 year of modeling that light field because it's not so easy, right? Because it's not once you focus with a microscope, light's properties change enormously.
Yeah.
And problem is you cannot image properly because you are looking at the focus and you are getting backscattered light. You're not getting
Yes.
light exactly where you're seeing the particles. So you have to model it. And there, of course, the guy who has helped me most in my journey in terms of theory, Professor Subhasish Gupta of Hyderabad.
Yes. Yes.
He's the one guy. He was another. He's great. I mean, he's one person who is. I mean, if you look at his credit debit balance in academia, how much he has given and how much academia has given back, it's a massive positive in his favor. I mean, it's like whatever. It's a different thing.
Absolutely.
But he was the guy because again, this type of optical modeling we had not done because my background was completely atomic physics, absolutely quantum atomic. ये सब तो मैं life में देखा ही नहीं. ये मैंने diffraction, vector diffraction theory and all, Born and Wolf का मैंने it is the most complicated theory in optics you can imagine, right? Because this is not straightforward diffraction. This angular spectrum method में तो मैंने life में नाम ही नहीं सुना उसका. Not even, I didn't know anything, right? And then there was this was the first time we met, remember? Hyderabad
conference. Yes.
That was the first time we met. There, Subhasish took a class of mine and that guy, my student Orijit, the guy who inverted the microscope and took out the lens, was another really, I mean, his theory thing was also fantastic. So, usko pura samjhaya. Then we did a model and then we found out that indeed this light thing, the field itself will become different. Why? Because that cover slip that I had purchased completely unknowingly did not have the same refractive index as my oil. Wonderful. So we had completely unknowingly created a refractive index stratified medium. And that Pawan has created a journey
Surely.
which is probably having some 20 papers now, all kinds of very complex things that we have now unearthed. This whole thing of how polarization and trajectory gets coupled and all this spinol shit, etc. We have just taken, layers and layers we have sort of unearthed. We have just taken out. And just because I did, and I remember I took these results to the SPI Optics and
Yeah.
Photonics conference, right? And I was, and again, this was so I had actually, that 2010, 11 or something, it was. And no, 10, I remember 10. We just had those results fresh. And I was invited to that conference. Of course, there was nothing in optical tweezers, right? I was invited on a paper that we had done in GE. So my talk was in an industrial, some reflectivity versus temperature, something which I had completely forgotten about also, but I had given that for this thing and they had accepted and given me a talk. Because that conference in the whole thing was not too much well attended. There were some. So my thing was, a whole conference, I went and sat in the optical tweezers talks, and you know that OTOM, the trapping and manipulation thing, that this is Kishan Dholakia's conference. Lots of people around. So there I met Giovanni Volpe. Okay. And I showed him the data. He said, "How is this possible? This is not impossible. How can you get this? Nobody has ever seen this. If you can," and then he actually told me, "If you can explain this, you will get a PRL." Of course, वो तो नहीं हुआ. छोड़ दो. That's another story. PRL. But I saw that the community did not know, really did not know.
Yeah.
Because that San Diego conference, Pawan, in optical trapping, that is like a who's who. Every
Exactly.
substance.
Exactly.
And they didn't know. They didn't know. And because nobody had used that. Because why would you use a spherically aberrated thing, right? Because you want a tight focus. Here I'm making the focus loose. And just because of that, we have seen such wonderful phenomena. Because I had no clue, I had no baggage on optical tweezer, not I would say baggage, but I had no experience at all. This and even the bubble micro patterning work, that also was completely serendipity. Absolutely.
Beautiful work. That is a beautiful
No,
work.
that's totally serendipity again. We did not know, matlab kya. Again, continuous patterns using bubbles was not known by the world. People had done static patterns and all that. And that also happened by fluke. Basudev, of course, IIT Madras, he's my first PhD student. So I had a collaboration with this chemist called Shomojit. So he had just joined. And we struck a friendship very quickly, actually. And he was this expert in the molybdates, okay, these soft polymers and all. And we were planning some stuff where we would look at. So these are like, it's a powder when you mixed with water, they become these jelly-like things, which big substances which sort of float around. So what we wanted to see was shape memory. Okay, so we wanted to focus light and these would bend, and then we would see if you release the light, they would come back. So Vasudev one day comes and it's like completely frustrated, telling me that, "Hey, this is a rubbish project." And he was used to get like, Vasudev was sine wave, okay? When you're extremely excited, then nothing happens. Relaxation time is very quick, actually, very fast. So he said, "This is a problem, you just forget it, let us start a new thing, not happening." I said, "What? Why?" So he said, "This is a damn bubble that comes. Moment I put light on these things, this is irritating bubble. And when I try to move the laser away, this bloody bubble follows the laser. And I cannot get it out. I have to switch off the light, only then the bubble goes." I said, "ये तो कभी लाइफ में सुना नहीं ऐसा, कभी नहीं देखा." Then he demoed me, अच्छा really ये क्या हो रहा है? Then we saw, acha, theek hai, this is something crazy. Okay, boy, what is this? But this is a new thing, right? You just think of it. I'm moving a laser and there is this bubble which is going with the laser. Because bubbles can't be trapped, right? Bubbles cannot be optically trapped because the refractive index is there. It is lower than the medium outside. They cannot be trapped. Here, it seems it is trapped and then it's moving. So what the hell? And then, lo and behold, we also see that when we retrace, so when I switch off the laser and all, and I move the microscope stage, I see some strange markings on the cover slip, which were not there before. And we were like, what the hell, yaar? ये तो बहुत strange हो रहा है. Because this was empty, कुछ नहीं था, it was glass or whatever polymer. That time you were using glass probably. And you get these strange stain-like objects, exactly like the wake of a jet plane. As a jet plane goes, right, you get those because of all this
plume kind of thing.
down, this path, this Yeah, nucleation of water vapor and all that because of sound wave and all these things that happen,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Sonic boom, so whatever. So exactly like that. And like, क्या हो गया ये कहाँ से आता है क्या I mean, it was like complete shock, right? I had no idea क्या हो रहा है. It took us 2 years to understand what was happening.
Mm, mm.
And that we were actually patterning that damn material on the cover slip. And because there was no literature at all, not a single piece of work which said they would actually create permanent patterns
Nice. Nice.
on a substrate when you move a bubble like
Mm,
that.
mm,
And see, we are patterning everything, right? We actually have had the temerity to say that we can pattern everything mesoscopic.
mm.
And we have patterned nanoparticles now, metal nanoparticles, of course, colloids, polymers. Now we have patterned viruses and bacteria. And this again happened because we saw something which we didn't discard.
Nice.
But obviously, Vasudev, had he his way, he would have said, "Go to hell." This is because, of course, we did it together, and he was the guy who then saw that there is this strange trail that is, kept back, and we dug and we dug. That is very crucial. We didn't give up. We kept on digging, and this is like I mean, it's not. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, some point of time, people will realize that this is something that in self-assembly based patterning techniques, this is
Mm.
really powerful. Really
Absolutely.
powerful. I mean, you can really pattern anything and make permanent patterns of them.
So
So
your recent,
serendipity has been,
yeah, yeah, your
yeah, there were six. Well,
yeah.
yeah.
Please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was saying that serendipity has been a massive friend, and it's
Mm,
been like really, I mean, happy discoveries. But then only thing is that I can say is that one is that I came with no baggage or no prior knowledge, so I did some things which no one in
mm.
optical trapping would have done, especially purchasing cover slips like that. No question, nobody would have thought of it also, right? And of course, and this is where IISER also comes in, because IISER actually has this enormously multidisciplinary atmosphere, right?
Mm,
Because, and we were all young people just conversing over tea. And Shomojit told me, okay, see, I don't have a lab, so why don't we try something? He had just joined.
mm,
And
mm.
so we started something, and then we got something, and we have been, lifelong collaborators since
Wonderful.
then. It's really worked out to very interesting stuff.
Fabulous. Fabulous. It's so nice to actually hear that. It's also good of you to really bring it out and explicitly spell out that serendipity plays a critical role, because that is something which
Of
people
course.
people don't appreciate, especially in an experimental science, right? Because there is so much of ambiguity and also uncertainty while you're doing the experiments. And I'm very glad that you
Well,
brought it out.
so much radioactivity. See, radioactivity wouldn't have happened, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, come on, you look at most of the stuff, right? Have been discovered by accident.
Accident.
Come on, I
Absolutely.
mean, you think of Michelson Morley. Michelson Morley, of course, was not serendipity, but the fact that they did not detect the quarter of a fringe movement, and of course, that is a different thing, that they were measuring the accuracy of their precision that time was so high, they could still sort of, that is a different thing saying in the sense that they stuck to their results.
Mm, mm.
They stuck to their results. The whole world wanted them to get a fringe shift,
Friendship.
right? Because if they got a fringe shift, then ether would have been established. The fact that they kept on, they went against the grain, and they actually stuck on to the fact that there is no fringe shift over experimental error, right? That belief, and the fact that Becquerel put those plates
Mm,
inside a
mm,
drawer,
mm,
locked
mm.
them, and took them out, and lo and behold, that has changed the world, right? So,
Absolutely.
serendipity, what is it? It is just something that happens. See, the whole point of research is discovering the unknown.
Absolutely
Right?
right.
So the unknown
Absolutely
will
right.
not come, and that has to be accident, right? Because I don't know what to get. If
Absolutely
I
right.
knew what to get, why would I be in research? Right? If there was something, so it is like, I remember one student of a certain faculty member here in IISER,
Mm,
not of physics, I must say,
mm.
came for their colloquium and said, "This was our hypothesis, and we intended to prove it." Okay. So that if you have, then this is our hypothesis, and my journey was to prove it. That is exactly the wrong approach in science, right? Your
Yeah.
hypothesis may be anything, right? The fact that you do something may negate, in fact, negation maybe get you more interesting results,
Exactly. Exactly.
right?
You're absolutely right. Absolutely. So this is beautifully explained. I agree with you on all the accounts what you mentioned. The other aspect, Oyan, is that your experience is also kind of very interesting and varied. As you mentioned, you went from the realm of atomic physics uh, with quite a lot of quantum involved in that particular kind of initiative. And then you went to GE, where you probably also got a taste of slightly different aspect of looking at the interactions. What were your broad
See,
lessons? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Could you please tell us kind of your broad learning in these two phases of your PhD and your GE time? Because that is very important, because I see that that has also stayed with you, that fantastic
of
philosophy of
course.
thinking about problems, and being not only just kind of embedded in fundamental questions, but also having an eye towards applications and other things. Uh, could you please tell us that bit a little bit more? Yeah.
So the PhD, as I said, see, the problem that I originally started with, that was trapping ions, ytterbium
Mm,
ions, never worked. So we could never get to trap ions. And unfortunately, in that lab, I think Vasant finally managed to trap calcium, I think a decade later or something.
mm, mm,
But the reason that we were not getting ions to be trapped, of course, now, in fact, that time also we realized was probably because the number of ions we were, getting into our vacuum chamber was very, very less.
mm,
So
mm,
there is this new method of photopolymerization, polymerization, or which Umakant and all do now. That was
mm,
that time not really known. Anyway, so the thing was, for the problem that I intended to do
mm,
in my about fifth year, or like, yeah, during my fifth year, it became increasingly difficult. We tried. So, first thing was our project. To that time, IISc used to give 15
mm,
lakhs to a
mm.
new joinee, and that was it. So 15 lakhs for an experimentalist in precision atomic physics is a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke because in a year it was over. Because
Yeah.
remember, anything that we had to do, we mostly had to buy stuff from abroad.
Mm.
So there were times, Pavan, when me and Umakant, of course, is a very
Yeah.
dear friend, is in with you.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen his interview with you as
Yeah.
well.
He's also appeared on
So
Pratidwani. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So he's
Mm,
my lab mate, then G mate. Now,
mm,
of course, he's at Pune and I'm here, and our journeys are a bit different. But those were the days when we built the lab together. And
mm,
of course, he was a senior partner because experimentally he was much better than me. I have no
mm.
qualms in saying this because Umakant started his life by mending TVs and radios.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had not
Yeah.
even held a soldering iron I had never held in my life. Because Calcutta University and Jadavpur gave you black boxes in your experiments,
Mm,
which I don't think has changed so much in universities in the country even now. You're not really taught experiments, to
mm,
use your hands during practical classes. Mostly you're not. And I was no different from that. And so he was a guy who was a pura genius in
mm,
electronics and most
mm,
of the stuff. I was nothing. Only thing was that I was like, I used to help him. And of course, physics theory wise,
mm,
of course, our training in Calcutta and Jadavpur was very solid. So
mm,
there it was, where I was mostly like even Stevens or, yeah, that was where I could sort of, contribute a lot, somewhat.
mm,
But we used to have to go to, so Vasant's philosophy was very simple. Some stuff you could not do without buying from abroad. Vacuum everything from abroad. The laser system, the giant thing that we had to finally buy, the Tizer fire system, 1 crore almost, everything from abroad.
mm,
15 lakhs, there was no question of all that. But we did buy those diode lasers. Just the lasers, remember?
mm.
Just the lasers.
Only this.
Everything else we built.
Amazing.
Only the laser. The whole mechanical thing we got designed. Vasant got it from a collaborator at MIT. It was built at IISc workshops. Electronics, almost everything Umakant used to design. I used to make those,
Mm,
PCB layouts. We used to get it done, manufactured in Bangalore. And electronics, we used to go to KR Market in Bangalore. We used to buy. And there were times when we spent money from our pockets because money had gone, no money
mm,
left. We had paid, and Vasant, of course, tried to give it back to somebody, but we didn't even ask at times because we
mm,
knew what we were going through. So one of the first things that I learned was you had to be on your feet. So there was a possibility. So Vasant got a giant DST proposal. Those days, and abhi ke liye is nothing, but there
mm,
those days 1.2 crores. which was a lot of money.
Nice. Nice.
Okay. And because that time, again, this atomic bomb, India, the Pokhran thing they tried, because of that, dollar prices shot up. And our project basically what 1 crore se niche tha, ऊपर चला गया because dollar prices increased and then it went to parliament and all. It became so it took us 2.5 years to get the money.
Wow.
The
Okay.
2.5 years that we did not get money basically probably have made me as an experimentalist because that is the time that say I was actually not so much inclined towards that kind of experience because I wanted to be an astrophysicist. Because Vasant, which is one of his favorite stories, that I had given interviews in IIC in the joint astronomy program that they had JAP, which
Jap.
Sudeep, etc. JAP, उसमें I was in waiting list. Okay, and my general thing was that either side whether I could transfer after some time because astrophysics has fascinated me quite a lot, and experiments I had very little exposure to, but I knew I would not do condensed matter theory. That I was sure, but astro अगर मिलता I would have done astro sure, and theory and the way astro is done. Maybe observations, yes, but certainly not lab experiments in the way that I finally did. So the first years at ISC were actually very trying because I was trying to settle in. I had this guy who was far better than me in everything, in experiments. And Vasant, at times, he was very close as a friend. Of course, he became a friend because he had joined ISC just 8 or 9 months earlier. But at times, he was also this guy who was very no nonsense and again like extremities in happiness and anger, and the anger extremities happened quicker than the happiness ones, and once he got angry he was like a machine gun in terms of verbal verbal what a beautiful appearances that came out ekdam taken from the US street talk. We were not even platitudes. I mean, basic language in our lab, that is what I have picked up also, is that the F word was basically what we lived by. Everybody.
What is it?
Okay,
Interesting.
even now, believe me, Pawan, it has so much gone into me that something goes wrong in the lab. The first thing that I utter is that. And these guys, at times, I know my lab kids are getting, oh my, what is this guy saying? Faculty, bloody dean of students say, bol raha hai aisa. But it's called English because doesn't say that all the time. And the thing was, anyway, Umakant was so much better, and I was very much second fiddle. But at the same time, I was learning, and Vasant at times he was never the most sensitive person on earth, though he was the guy who taught me by his hands, literally. And I've worked with him till 4 a.m. in the lab, wiring my iron trap. And a lot of my PhD work, actually, he did, in the sense that the experiments, I did not know anything. Much of it, the vacuum system design, everything. I mean, he really told me what to do. And then later on, first of all, मैं तो कर ही नहीं सकता, वही करता था. I used to be a helper to him. After that, of course, I sort of became somewhat better and I could carry out what he said. Later on, however, after 6 years, I was the guy who ran the lab. So I absolutely, because juniors, I trained everything. And it was Umakant had left a year. He left on the 6th year. I left at the 7th year. 8th year, actually. I stayed back longer, much longer. He left in 2002, one, I think, or 2 or 1, whatever. Yeah. I left in 2004. So, and that last, in fact, you won't believe this, my first 5 years, I had 5 or 6 years, I had 2 papers. 2. And I finished at the 8th, I had 9 papers. And this last 1 year, 1.5 years, produced 6. And I really had mastered things from complete zero. Really, literally zero. Had not touched a soldering iron before. So what it taught me was when you pick up things from nothing, even if you think that they will not give you immediate rewards, in the long run, that is what is going to be your differentiator. Nice. Number 2, I had started with a view to trapping ions. Did not work. Mostly because we were working on ytterbium, trapping ytterbium and cooling them. So unless you cool, you could not see the ions, right? Now, ytterbium lines, the laser lines, do not have a frequency reference. So it's not like rubidium where you lock to a wafer cell and then you know the frequency of the laser and you can do your optical, your magneto-optic track. Here there is no reference. You have to measure the damn laser wavelength. And
Nice.
essentially my PhD became that. My PhD became measuring atomic transitions to part per billion using a cavity which a very complicated cavity which we had initially designed for frequency doubling. Because again, we do not have money to buy a doubler. We were designing in the lab. Umakant. So because remember, for trapping ions, you need 398 nanometers, which is in the blue. You didn't get blue lasers those days. I mean, diode lasers तो नहीं होता था. Blue lasers at that narrow line width were very different. I don't think they existed even. So our thing was to get a diode laser, try to double it with our homemade doubler, and get ahead. We 100 milliwatts, we got 50 microwatts delay. That will not work. That would not work. It was clear. That device became my baby for my PhD. But
Nice.
different, completely different problem. Completely different problem. And that I saw that in India, you really have to go by that Alice in Wonderland thing. If you want to stay in the same place, you have to be running all the time. You have to
Nice.
continuously innovate. You will not get projects. Money is, of course, will never be competitive with the millions of dollars that people get. $1 is 84 rupees now, so you know what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. But if something doesn't work, you have to move on.
Nice.
Do something that is different, but something will surely turn up. If you're passionate, if you are creative enough, it will turn up. That was a massive thing. And the other thing was try to make things with your own hands as much as possible. Our lab, see, Make in India and all the slogans came now. Make in India is what we have been doing since 96.
Yeah.
96 to that lab, Vasant Rajan has not really been appreciated. I deeply think that because he is always somehow known for what he could not do. Because somehow people think that he promised to deliver a BAC, Bose-Einstein condensate, and do EDM, electric dipole moment of an atom, and all. But those were very, very high-flying things. What he did was set up a quantum optics experimental platform completely by his own in India without any collaboration. Nobody really recognizes that. Now there's so much of stuff on quantum, right? The whole world is going quantum. India's funding buckets are quantum. Nobody realizes that that lab had started quantum stuff and really things which could be even meaningful in terms of practical usage much earlier. In G, it was different. In fact, I was very skeptical that I could fit into G because I thought I would have to wear ties and all that. That was, if that had happened, I would have joined G. I wouldn't have joined G, right? And there was again somewhat very, very lucky because there was this project that they had sort of obtained from the US that about measuring this something called the steam quality. So in a boiler, you have this steam and water droplets mixture. Okay, so they had to measure the amount of water droplets in steam using diode laser spectroscopy, tunable diode laser spectroscopy. Problem was they had got the problem, but they had the thing that they had to solve, but they had no expertise at all to solve it. Because those days in India, tunable diode lasers were done in very few places. And I at that time at my age group was probably me and Wakan were the biggest experts around. And somehow I got connected there. And somehow I went into that place and I saw that I could wear my t-shirt and jeans and I could enter at 11 o'clock and leave at 5 o'clock. And I could just go ahead. So what he taught me, Pawan, is that what the world really cares. That
Nice.
I will never ever forget. Because what I was doing this part per billion measurements and all that in my lab. They didn't care a damn. They were not even interested in that. They had this 30,000 feet high view, 30,000 feet high view of the world. And the fact that what you might do in your lab in academia and all might publish papers and might get you laurels and fellowships and money and all that. Unfortunately, 99 point several 9% of humanity doesn't care a damn.
Very
Does
well
not
said.
care a damn
Very
about
well
it.
said. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right.
Good person was a bit rude at the one. They
Mm,
told me, some managers would tell me, that, "Hey, what are you crazy? Why do you publish? Are you mad? You should
mm.
only patent. Publication is for idiots. Why are you giving away all this brilliant IP that you have developed? This is your brainchild. You get money out of it. Monetizing, another thing.
Ah,
Second thing I learned. And maybe one another other very important thing was to present things in a very sort of crisp, concise
Christmas.
manner, leaving out things that are details.
Mm,
Because when we write papers, and especially for students, I've seen when you describe your journey, the nitty gritties are the ones that you have to fight about.
yeah,
But
yeah,
when you write a paper or give a presentation, the world doesn't care.
yeah.
The world looks at the final output. They will
Mm.
not even care a damn that you beat your head against the wall for bloody getting this vacuum from 10 to the minus 8 to 10 to the minus 9. They don't care. But this has been your journey, your personal journey that has made you what you are. But unfortunately, when you communicate it, that part cannot be stressed on. How to present in front of big corporate honchos.
Mm,
Because one thing was that it was very sort of, the levels were very few. So you had
mm.
a research scientist, then a lead scientist, then you had a global technology, the lead scientist, then you had lab manager. Straight after that, global technology leader. Uske baad it is like close to CEO.
Wow.
Very, very close. So 6, 7 layers only between
Mm,
me and the guy who was the CEO. So that again, this democracy was there. And there also, another thing that I realized was, see, our projects were mostly coming from the US.
mm, mm,
So Indians who went abroad, so there was this thing of control there,
mm,
right?
mm,
So initially I started with being a part of a team member of some project, right? And I was leading my personal part of the project, but there was this overall team member whom, there are no bosses that way, but I had to report to them.
mm,
And many of them were friendly, unless they were Indians.
mm,
That I really saw. That the moment those project leaders became Indians, it was a very different ballgame, because there was this very, this factor of entitlement,
mm,
this factor of superiority, which I actually didn't find too much in people who were, from the US or
mm,
Westerners. I didn't find that. Later on, I started leading projects, my own. In fact, when I left GE, I had absolutely my own couple of projects. In fact, GE was not inclined to let me go because I had really, say, I had 21 patents in 5 years,
mm, mm, mm,
4.5 years. So it was like they really wanted to keep me. But then I saw that I was becoming a PowerPoint scientist.
mm, mm,
I could make PowerPoints in 15 minutes and explain some ideas to some bosses, some, corporate, some managers, business program managers used to say, who were
mm.
completely stupid when it came to science. Absolutely stupid. Right? They were very, very, very clever world-wise. But if you could talk to them in the right way, they would just buy. And I was
Uh,
seeing that I was taking them for a ride. But ये करके तो मेरा तो I am not developing, right?
yeah.
And there was this straight jacket thing also, right? Finally,
Yes.
they wanted the way, that they chose.
Mm,
Now I could try to fit in a bit, but the means to do it would be to get close to somebody who was influential, and
mm,
that meant coddling up and cozying up to them, and which I thought was meaningless because I was taking the company for a ride. I realized that because you have to give these, very crucial was every year before the calendar year. So they go by calendar years. You have to
mm,
give a thing that you have to achieve.
mm,
Okay, goals and objectives, G's and O's, were crucial. You
mm,
give your goals, and at the end of the year, there was something called, what was it called? Some kind of evaluation,
mm.
where the goals and actual what you have, achieved would be tallied. So
Tallied.
what I
Okay.
saw, and I'm essentially saying that now, confessing this now, that what goals I would set for myself,
Mm.
they were not in a position to understand. Right? So I could easily set goals which for me were like this,
Ah,
and I
ah.
would easily achieve more than that. I would easily achieve more than that. So I was a
Mm.
super achiever. But I knew very well that ये तो क्या हो रहा है यार, I am deceiving myself. So I was their very valuable employee, but at the end, I was so corporate. If you can, it's a bit shallow. That corporate
Mm.
research that I found, G research at the US was super. I've
Mm.
several times I've been there, and they look like Max Planck labs, really, very, very, very
Nice,
solid.
nice.
But again, patents are much easier to get than publications, but that shallowness is there. So
Mm.
that I felt. But again, that global view that I got, that 30,000 feet high view, that I will never forget.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is a beautiful description. You also have painted the evolution of you as a researcher, and also kind of navigating yourself through human conditions. In fact, that is something which is very important, right? Because science is not done in isolation, and you beautifully actually mentioned how you are able to take it forward and look at different things. So this brought you to IISER Kolkata, Ayan. And since we have actually almost the similar origins in terms of the timelines, I know that you also were deeply kind of invested in not only just being a faculty member, but also a person who has kind of grown with the institution. You've taken, of course, the department forward. You become the chair, and there's so many fantastic students have graduated from your lab. I have interacted with so many of them. It is really joy. It's one thing is, of course, to go forward and do things. Other is also to take people with you and do things. That is, I think,
Absolutely.
one of the most delightful things about doing science, because that is also an underappreciated aspect of academia. Because these are all things which doesn't get captured in metrics, and therefore
Absolutely.
gets washed away in only those things which can be quantified. Uh, Tell us a little bit about your experience of that, and also your various ventures as an academic, as an independent academic, researcher, now startup, a department head. You've worn so
So
many
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
so so
So
so
again,
many hats. Yeah, please tell us about that.
yeah, so I reiterate, I personally don't have a startup.
Yeah,
I am one of the founding directors of
directors.
the incubator advertiser,
Yes.
and I do not think, Pawan, that I will ever have a startup because
Okay.
I know what it takes to have a startup,
Yeah.
and I know that the many hats that you are saying, and it's a fact that I do
Mm.
like changing hats. Those hats will go. Because if you want to get a startup work, you do that.
Do
You
that. Yeah.
better
Yeah.
do that
Yeah. Yeah.
only.
You're right. You're
And
right.
I
Yeah.
will not be able to do that.
Mm, mm.
I will not be. So I have students whom I'm trying to motivate to take our technology
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
start ventures. I will give them whatever support they need.
Mm.
But I am not going to lose my night's sleep because
Yeah.
tomorrow's presentation to an angel investor is scheduled. And if I screw up, my 10 crores is gone. I'm
Gone.
not going to
Yeah.
do that. I don't think I will ever do that. That is something which I don't think I will do. For
Nice.
ISER, we have seen it. There was a time when so I shifted lab. How many times now? Three times, I think. Three times. So in
Yeah.
the old building, I was first given a lab on the first floor.
Mm.
I started it and then immediately I said, ये नहीं होगा, ये ऊंचा है, problem है, बहुत dust, etc. So I went to the ground floor. So we didn't shift too much, but at least for the record, I did move from there. But
Mm.
from that place, that was in our old campus, that was the temporary transit campus that we had from the Vidhan Chandra Krishi Vishwavidyalaya. It was actually not that. It was the West Bengal Animal Husbandry and WBUAFS, Agricultural and Farming and all that.
Mm.
So there were huge, humongous land here. We took a piece of land, part of that. They had these
Mm.
buildings which had become like haunted houses, and they were all repaired. And one of the buildings we took up as there were like three buildings: JC Bose building, CV Raman building, and there was the other building next to us. From there, 2016, I moved to
Mm.
the new campus to the lab, in our first floor research building. And again in 2022, I think we moved to the final अभी एक और एक lab है ground floor पे. So that probably is the last time I'll move. I refuse to take more of this trouble of shifting out everything. It's really setting up everything again. But whatever it is, and why am I saying this? Because I've seen the institute grow with me in my
Mm.
movements. So when I was in that lab, we used to have, so the director's office was about what 100, 200, 150 meters from there, and everything was decided typically in, nightly sort of gatherings that happened in the director's house. I will not go in too much detail, but things generally were decided there. From there, it kind of shifted to much more sort of structured meetings that used to happen monthly or whatever. From there, it became, you had to, okay, thankfully, we've not really have had cases where we had to make prior appointments of a week or so with the director. We thankfully mostly have been able to barge into the director's room and have conversations. But at the same time, things have become much more formal to now where, and I've seen, of course, the purchase process, that has also been a marker. We used to buy things like that when I initially joined. Now, in order to make an indent, we need a committee. An indent which is more than a certain value of money, we need a committee. So I think I have observed things getting far more complex and much more, I mean, research, I'll be blunt about this, research unfriendly, especially if you're an experimentalist. I have seen research getting more and more unfriendly in this country. I have no hesitations in saying this because I'm going through it. Okay. And of course, I have seen IISER where, when I first joined, 2009 batch, the total number of student strength in IISER was what? And that batch probably had about 120 students who joined, 2009 batch. And the total strength was also, what, 300 to maybe total, or with PhDs, maybe 300, 350. And you knew personally people. So that first batch of IISER who joined with me 2009, many of them I still remember by face. I'm in contact with them, and they are like friends and colleagues and almost like that, right? And of course, my students in 2006, they are one as Arijit is a faculty at SN Bose now. Shomit has a big company, Singapore. So everybody, they've done quite well. And I have seen this institute, which was like a toddler at once upon a time, and which we had to hold hands to make it
Hands to,
walk.
yes.
It is, of course, now 16, 7, 6, almost like, yeah, 18 years of age now. So it's adult. So my son and my institute both were born in the same year. Both are adults now. And I myself at times feel like a dinosaur here because probably not T-Rex, but probably one of those friendlier dinosaurs. And just like dinosaurs finally evolved into birds, probably. So I too am trying to grow wings in the sense that I don't mean, of course, literally flying away from either or something, but I'm saying that I want to evolve as well. The key differences that I have noticed here is that, I mean, somehow, things, it were very informal at one point of time. Of course, and as an institute grows bigger, you cannot have this a certain degree of discipline and formal stuff will come in. But I'm also I mean, very clearly what I'm seeing is bureaucracy in this country in terms of scientific research is at the worst that I've ever seen at this moment. And because there is pressure from audit and there's pressure of this and that, there is general, I want to buy a laser, which I wrote down. I mean, I invented in 2022. I still don't have that. So where is the competitive advantage gone, right? So if something that I want to buy hasn't come to me for 2 years, what is the point of it, Pawan?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So I have seen this whole system, all these purchases and these people, I've known them from 2009, right? But I have seen, it used to be a phone call, now it's all email. And you would now have to, show that a market survey
Yeah.
in order to prove that you had done a market survey, you're supposed to give a car bill. Okay? I mean, that is remarkable, right? I mean, there is a very definite lack of trust
Mm, mm,
between the bureaucracy which controls science in India and scientists. That evolution I have seen as I've grown with IISER. What I've also seen is that mindset of students
Mm.
somewhat has changed. I have not seen too much of change in the BSMS students because there are still people who are, most of them, a very significant majority of them want to do PhDs.
Mm.
But in terms of PhDs,
Yeah.
people are joining IISERs as PhDs. There, I am seeing a very definitive change.
Mm.
We are struggling to get students who want to do PhDs in India. And that is probably because of the fact that, you know, we are not able to provide people who have done PhDs from India or from Indians who have done PhDs, let me say it like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even people who have done PhDs in abroad are struggling to get a job in India
Mm.
because things have become difficult, because there is reservation, there is all this. I mean, in our times, of course, number of jobs, so that is even stranger, right? Because we have no more institutes now in India. We have more IITs. We have a couple of more IISERs. But you still find so many unemployed good PhD students.
Mm.
And that is getting really into a serious problem, I think. And I want to keep this on record, put this on record, that I can tell you, I had at one point of time, like 2017, 16, 17, I had 13 students in my lab
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
PhD and undergrad
Mm.
postdocs. Now I have 9.
Yeah.
With MS, I have probably a
Mm.
couple more, but 4 of them will leave
Mm.
in the next year, by the next year. And I do not know whether I can fill them up.
Mm.
And I can see that the institute has that way, I think most institutes in India, that way are probably struggling
Mm.
to keep up with the hopes and ambitions of their faculty who are actually interested in research, but who need capital, who need logistical support. That I've seen was much more smoother in IISER before, is getting more and more complicated. That is maybe, yeah. I think that there is a massive trust deficit.
Mm.
There is this probably the feeling that there's a lot of corruption. I myself, I can tell you in academia, whatever I've seen, I've never seen the thing that we see in, happening in other places in the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
But equating that with academia with that is probably not a fair call.
Fair call. Yeah.
And of course, see, I've tried to help IISER, because IISER has made me what I am in terms of a creative researcher, the support that I've got from here, the labs, the everything, right? I mean, people, I mean, of course, we have one building where all the researchers are housed,
Mm.
most of the researchers. There are very few barriers. Teaching is very flexible again. And I see people, I think, see, this was something which Gerhard Rempeter told me,
Mm.
Max Planck. So he's told me, so I was not very interested that time to be a teacher. So he told me that in teaching, the one who learns the most is the teacher.
Yeah. Absolutely
And
right.
that I have found out to be the most, one of those tautologies, ekdam perfect.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
that is something which absolutely. So that, we have a vibrant teaching program, and that somehow, whatever happens, we are steadfastly holding on to that. I do feel that IISER Kolkata, because of our location, we have been compromised a bit in the sense that you guys are in Pune directly. That is helpful, both in terms of getting students as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that we are not in Kolkata, so we have to offer hostels.
Mm.
Hostels ke liye money, there is not enough money. There's a lot of, so that has been a continuous struggle for us. I am trying to, as dean of students now, I'm trying to get in some
Mm.
stuff where we will be more visible as a brand, where
Yeah.
people will know us around. Because that I've seen is that, see, that I've realized, and this is solid now, that it is without doubt now, that I cannot get satisfied by just doing one thing. That is very clear to me.
Beautiful.
Okay?
Beautiful. That's
So,
nice.
yeah, I am not satisfied. And I don't feel too much of difference. At times when doing work on my computer, I have a window where I'm writing a paper and where I'm writing a script. And at
Yes.
times I just juggle between
Ja-
them. No, because for me, creativity is a continuous process. The
Nice.
fact that, I create characters and I create whatever, I think the same kind of, it's not different. I mean, it's not that I have to wear a different hat. I mean,
Mm,
publicly, of course, it appears very different. So
mm.
I'm not aware of too many scientific personalities who are into professional theater.
Theater.
I'm not that much like, I mean, just struggling somehow, but I do try to, at least in terms of standards, we try not to compromise. We do stuff
Nice.
which I think, see, one of our plays has have been listed as one of the 25 best plays in Calcutta running at the moment in last year.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah, so that was one pretty well-known critic. He listed one of our plays as. So that I can still say that I do not compromise on that. But at the same time, and I've seen that. See, like I know altruism is a word which probably is very theoretical and very heavy, but
Mm.
you are doing it because of that, right? That joy that you
Absolutely.
feel because of doing
Absolutely.
things. So that only people who get the joys of
Joy.
altruism will. I mean, if that altruism word is a bit. I don't like the word. It's a bit embarrassing and all. I think, but at the same time, you feel happy when you see a student smile. That I can tell you.
Absolutely.
When I can,
Absolutely.
solve the problem for them. Because and one thing I will never forget as an administrator as well, I never forget the fact that once upon a time, I also was a student.
Student.
And now
Very
I'm on the
nice.
other side of that. Unfortunately, I must say, I see disappointingly many colleagues forgetting that.
Mm, mm,
The moment you're on the other side of the thing, barrier or the fence, you have this attitude of, yeah, student log, inko
mm.
kya karna? I mean, no, these students are not up to any good. And
Yeah.
that, I mean, this was your journey too. Would you have
True.
liked if people at that time said this about you? So never
So true.
forget your roots.
So true, so true. And you really, everything what you've said is something which has to be deeply thought about. It also is a word of kind of appeal to people who may have influence and power to really look into questions what you have raised. Because at the core of it is the good intention. Because you are embedded in the system, you feel that the system actually can be much better than what it is, because undoubtedly, including, I have seen that in Kolkata, the human resource is of very high quality. That is probably our biggest strength. When it comes to science, not only science, also, people have that compassion and passion. That combination is very rare to get, because you may actually have one and not the other one
Most,
too.
you know, the most impractical people on earth are still probably Calcuttans. Calcuttans get the world championship of impracticality. There
Well,
was a world champion of romanticism. I think Calcutta would still be up there.
poetry is
So that
impractical.
I revel, that I really love poets.
Poetry is
Yes,
impractical, huh?
it is very
But
important.
yeah, but I don't think we as human beings can live without poetry. Yes, yes, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. So
And
I,
I probably, yeah, I read in this one thing. See, this, I think I read in Dostoevsky or somewhere there. I haven't found that quotation
mm,
somewhere after that. I'm sure I read it somewhere. Is that Dostoevsky actually said that for an intellectual, for somebody who is, likes to use their intellect, it is not possible to do one thing.
mm,
It is just not possible. That when I read it, I did not think
okay.
of it. I now realize that really, I mean, it is impossible for
Absolutely.
we to do just one thing. So that, and I at times do feel that, our science colleagues in science, is probably, the breadth is of interests.
Yes, absolutely.
We can have a good conversation, but how many people are there in our
Yeah,
community
yeah,
when you
yeah.
think of it with whom you talk about many things?
Absolutely.
So I think it is important for people to come up, and when they're doing science, also remember that this is just a form of gathering knowledge,
That's right.
right?
Absolutely.
And other fields are there which are as important, as good. And it's all a very holistic thing. I mean, science, society, politics, they are not different. They are
Different.
very
Absolutely.
much one and the same.
One and the same. In fact, you beautifully described that. In fact, that is something which is very important for everybody to appreciate. It's not like you have to actually become a politician to really get involved into all the things,
No,
but it is an important aspect for us to really realize that there are important elements of the society where the scientist has a role to play in that sense. Yeah. So I
It will affect you. It will affect you.
affect you.
Realize that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I as we come to the close, give us a gist about your foray into theater, your projects. And I know there is a great play called Solver, which you people actually have been running for a while. And there are also very good plays which you have conducted with your team against superstition and looking at a slightly more scientific view of the society. Give us a gist of your theater aspect, and then we'll conclude. Yeah.
So see, I mean, theater for me is a means of letting myself go. I like to perform, and I think everything is a performance. I mean, what we are doing now is also a performance,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes,
Because it's a fact, it's a communication, and it's a thing that it will be shared. I mean, whatever you do in life, I mean, this all the world's a stage. That
yes.
is a very deep statement.
Please, yes,
That is
yes.
not something which was written in a play. You are evaluated. Your relationships, your whatever, are, while we say that we don't want to be judged or whatever,
Mm,
it's a fact that whatever is evaluated, it is measured, it is cast against, it is
mm,
looked at under a magnifying glass or a
mm.
microscope or a telescope by others, by the world around you, right?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
that is something which I've realized, mostly because I think probably because of my forays into theater. Because
Mm,
I this is one thing where I can be what I am not.
mm,
I cannot be because of whatever morality or whatever things, or maybe lack of possibilities. I will not be able to be a smuggler or a murderer or something. I will never be so-called. There is this thing called consciousness. Is everything, right?
yeah.
I will not be something, many things. I will probably not be a Moriarty,
Mm.
but I want to experience that. I want to go through what it is being a Moriarty, because Holmes and Moriarty are just I mean, opposite sides of the same coin, right? They're not too much different. It's just the way they have chosen to express themselves. It is just their performance that is different, right? And
Nice.
for me, saying things on this, having all the lights on you and everybody looking at you, that gives a thrill. That
Mm,
is something, and that has been very sort of, I think, one of the main reasons that I have evolved very much as a teacher as well.
nice.
Because there was a time when when I was very young, when not even very young, when I was even in my maybe my class up to my class 12 or something, when I had a stutter issue. I
Mm,
did stutter at times, and I was a bit because of that. When I did public things, I rarely did public things because we didn't have
mm,
opportunities those days, right? We did not have ways of expressing ourselves. Things were much more limited then, right? We didn't have a phone. So there, I had a problem when I had to speak out. So I was sort
mm,
of, that thing was, I could. So one of the things that I've done in workshops in theater is I've actually called out people on this. I mean, in my
mm,
workshop
mm,
participants,
mm.
and asked them to scream, let go and
Nice,
scream.
nice,
Can you do it?
nice.
I challenge you, Pavan. Can you do it?
Mm.
Can you scream, letting go,
Yes, yes.
letting myself go? Once I had there was these, when my daughter was born. So
Mm,
you have this custom of transvestites who come and collect
mm,
money, right?
mm, mm. Yeah, yeah.
It's in
Yeah, yeah.
Bengal, it's there.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
you,
In many,
you
many places it is there. In many places it's
many
there.
places, and
Yeah.
in fact, when we went to by train to between, if you travel between Pune and Bangalore,
Yeah.
by train during our times,
Yes.
there were like
Every
three transvestites would come up,
yeah.
three different instances, three different groups. So there was this large group, which came to me and demanding money. And I said, why will I give money?
Mm,
And they were like shell shocked. That, what are you saying? You will, all this negative vibes will come, and your daughter will be soon banished into hell and all kinds of stuff.
Mm.
And then I said, no, so I don't think that will happen. There is no statistical proof towards that. They thought they was a raving mad, complete idiot. And then they, of course, started their typical, those antics, why
Uh,
those typical things of, the tali bajao and all. Uh, they thought that, those are the things, but the moment you do that in front of a commoner or something, people just get,
mm.
yeah, oh, okay, ठीक है भाई, नहीं चाहिए, नहीं चाहिए. In fact, my father was, staying with us then at in Kalyani, and the moment they came, he went into his room and shut the door. He peacefully just went into his room, shut the door. I was in fact getting ready to come to IISER, and then this happened. And I had a half an hour engagement with them, and then when they started doing the antics, I also started doing that. I said, "You can do that. I have no problem. I have to do that." I also start doing this. And they were like, Adi, yeah, they had not seen this craziness ever. I said, what, no problem. You do that, I will also do that.
Yeah.
I don't have any problems. I don't have any inhibitions. So this thing of inhibitions, these are our constraints.
Mm.
These prevent us from expressing ourselves. Theater has been this one driving or one sort of this has been the space which has allowed me to overcome my inhibitions,
Beautiful.
and that has, yes, really, and in fact
Mm.
that's what my children are also into that. My
Yeah.
daughter think she has a lot of capacity, but she still can't let herself go, and
Mm.
I know that. I mean, when I was her age, I was much worse than her. She's far better, but she still cannot. In fact, that screaming thing she can't do. She's a
Mm.
good actress. Whatever roles I write for her, she does very well. But
Mm.
I write those roles because I know she will do well. If
Mm.
she's allowed to do a role which is not in a particular manner, then she'll probably struggle a bit. But I hope one day she will be able to do that. She should allow. See, Anindita can let herself go. I've seen many people who can let themselves go, and that is, I think somebody, Paresh Rawal or somebody
Mm.
said that the difference between an actor and a non-actor is that an actor, a non-actor is like a normal person.
Mm.
An actor can become a normal person in front of the camera.
Nice. Nice. Wow.
An
That's actually
actor can
quite.
become a normal person on stage or in front of the camera.
That's profound.
And
Huh?
that is another
Mm.
thing that I really, yes. Okay. And that is something which I again strongly believe.
Mm.
And theater has been, see, IISER has had a lot of academia in India, and especially a new institute like IISER. IISER Kolkata has had its numerous problems, very significant problems. I don't want to get into all those. But we had a tough journey. When my daughter was born, financially I was not very good. And Anindita was not confirmed at IISER. There was a lot of
Mm.
issues.
Mm. Mm.
Second, we developed, I think, hypertension, diabetes, all that I have now. Probably is because of that phase, a lot of pressure. I survived because of theater.
Mm.
Because there has been this space where I have just totally just sort of shifted out of this environment and remained creative. So we have a group, and that group has kind of consolidated now into, so it is, many people have come and gone. Now we have a nucleus of some 7, 8 people, 6, 7 people, I guess, who have stood by thick and thin, by storm and whatever peril. Hopefully, they will continue. Finance is a massive, massive problem, huge problem, because
Mm.
I am only very little of my time I give to theater, and
Mm.
we do not have any grants that the government provides, because वो grants के लिए again you need to be of a certain type. You have to go to New Delhi, and you know you have to plead with the bosses, and you have to be adequately favored by them. I It's mostly our funding with money which
Mm.
goes down. I won't say goes down the drain, because finally when I see somebody who comes up on stage and cries because
Mm.
of the play that you have performed, that to me is one of the greatest prizes you can get. I've seen that, and people have the reaction of, yeah, we don't get very, very full houses. Of course, PRL was
Oh
different.
man,
I mean,
that was
when we
yeah.
get a show of the person. So, see, we are, as for me, it has been a different, it's been, creativity is a continuous process.
Mm,
My theater has just been an extension of that. I also strongly feel that the point of view of scientists, the point of view of rationality, has not been expressed
yes.
in this country, and it's rarely expressed anywhere in the world, the rational point of view. In fact, the importance of probability, right?
Mm,
That it is so crucial in the way
absolutely.
we live.
So critical.
That
So
is what
critical.
we try to show in Uncertainty of Principles. And somehow, even our history, see, I'm deeply a student of history. In fact, now I I read the same amount of history as I read papers. I love exploring
Yes.
Indian history, mostly
Yeah.
Indian history. I really, in fact, a lot of our history, especially at the time of the end of the Mughal Empire and the coming of the British,
Mm,
that part is so
so
fantastically
fantastic.
interesting.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
has so many parallels with what is happening now.
Mm,
I see exact parallels.
mm,
Okay. And that is one of my life projects, to somehow expose that, to sort of, bring it, have us
yeah.
something to bring it out in front of the people and show that finally this saying that history repeats itself is, it is again a tautology. It is
It
so
is
obvious because humanity has not evolved. How much
evolved
do you think it's in
exactly.
the evolutionary time scale? The last
We
20,000 years is a millisecond or something.
exactly. It's a
It's a
tiny,
millisecond.
tiny exactly.
So what we were
Uh,
during Alexander's time, we have not changed. At least, of course, technology has been there, but these are like offsets have changed, but
exactly.
the boundary conditions have changed. But the main interactions, the potentials, if we say, they have been very sort of similar. And my hope is that has to be so. One is rationality, one is knowing where you came from, what is the reason that you are what you are
Mm,
now.
mm, mm,
So my ex theater is basically like that. We want to show mirror to the society, mirror to thinking. We struggle a lot because again, funding is a big issue. This uncertainty of principles is something
mm,
that
mm.
gets us money. So if you can, please give us. I'm again saying on public, people who hear it, Pawan has seen the play. So if we
Amazing.
get
Yeah.
opportunities to perform it in institutions, we'll be very grateful. And see, theater is an art which is having to compete with your smartphone, with
Mm,
OTTs, and it cannot rival. It's impossible. Because why would you go to see a theater when you have, theatrical performance when you have Netflix, right? The only thing is you have a performer who's crying in front of you,
mm.
whom you can touch, you feel that you can touch. No other art form can give that in terms of sort of narrating a story.
Yeah,
Of course,
story.
dance and all, but dance and music are there. But a live theatrical performance is unparalleled as an art. Theater will survive, of course. I don't know, of course, whether our efforts in theater will, because we are constantly fighting with finances and resources, and I'm getting old and energy-wise also. I don't know, but yeah, but whatever. At least whether I don't know whether I can continue my actual productions, but hopefully I'll be able to write.
Absolutely, absolutely. I am very sure both the efforts and the joy you bring will continue, Vayan. It has been an absolute delight and a pleasure to really converse with
I
you.
mean, time has just flown by, man. I don't
Yeah,
think we've
yeah.
spent too
No,
much
no,
of
no,
time.
no, no, no. It's
What
always
was
a
that?
pleasure. It's always a
Yeah,
pleasure
yeah, yeah.
to really,
Good
really,
talking with you.
interact. So, and I'm very sure we'll actually have you again on Pratidwani at some point of time to have this beautiful discussion. It's also the ability for you to narrate a story, which makes Ayan what Ayan is. That is the something which we value a lot in you, apart from you being an excellent scientist and contributing not only to just science but also to people who are interested in science. That is something I keep telling, that because it's the people which is very, very critical, and keeping people at the center of many things would actually make a big difference. And Iron's effort has just kind of reinforced this point time and again for us to learn through his theater work, through his science, through his mentorship, and also being a nice human being. That is something we value.
To extend Pratidhani to have multiple people, right? You can have a chai pe adda type, like
Yeah, yeah,
coffee
yeah,
with Pawan. Coffee with Pawan. Have two, three
yeah,
people and then have a nice discussion.
yeah, yeah. We'll have it. We'll have
Coffee or some
it.
other things with Pawan.
Oh my.
We go a higher level, coffee or other things with Pawan.
Other things, oh my word, no. Black coffee with Pawan, probably.
Going back with Pawan.
Okay,
Or
yeah.
whatever. Espresso.
Espresso,
Espresso and yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, doing
I,
great. I mean, as I'm saying, I think we really need to be together. And I
yeah,
think, again, I mean, this effort of yours to archive our community, I'm sure will not get unnoticed.
unnoticed. Yeah,
People will
yeah.
value this. I hope.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. So yeah, it's all to do is just do a bit of kind of oral history archiving in the context of, let's say, people who are involved in some kind of curiosity driven work. And I'm sure I've already seen that a lot of people do appreciate, especially students and also people outside academia also have been actually listening to this, and also have got emails and responses outside India. A lot of Indian students and diaspora also do write to us once in a while, and it's very heartening to see that the people do value science and scientific thinking. And Pratidhani is all about that, humanizing science, so to speak. Yeah, yeah. Okay, Ayan.
Absolutely.
So
Humanizing is, yeah, that's definitely.
yeah, thank you,
We
Ayan. Thanks a
desperately
lot.
need that. We need fresh blood in science. Welcome. And hopefully,
Mm.
more fresh blood and fresh ideas and fresh
Yeah,
creativity will spawn out of some of these interactions we are having.
absolutely.
Great, man. Great talking to you.
Thank you, Ayan. Thanks a lot. Thank you. This is Pratidhani, where we
Bye.
try to humanize
Bye.
science, this time with the one and the only Ayan Banerjee. Thanks, Ayan.